Hello, everyone. This is Last Minute Movies. This is an extremely special thing. We prepare for this for many, many weeks. Aidan and I are here to talk to you about everything. The great, the good, the bad, and the ugly that happened to Pixar.
So with our little Last Minute Movies After Dark flagship that we worked on with Firefly, we wanted to make a stand that was a little more explicitly Igor and I. And one of the ways we wanted to approach that was addressing the death of a lot of the great or formerly great movie studios, addressing their downfall. So our goal here is to go through the list of Pixar movies and kind of address our understanding of the context behind each of the releases, maybe rank a couple of those releases based on which ones are our favorite, and then talk about okay, how can Pixar pull themselves out of this quagmire? And hopefully, while we do that, we can get a little fucking tipsy. I'm already a drink in. Are you smoking up actively, Mr. Gold?
Nah, I'm gonna take breaks. I'm gonna take breaks as we keep going through the movies to get less sober, because some of it I need my full energy to describe you some of the early stuff we're gonna talk about, because as billions of other kids in the world, I am certain that this has made everyone else's childhoods too, just like mine. I want to make sure that I'm giving all the love and justice on the channel to all the early Pixar legacy stuff. But you'll notice that when we get to part 2 and part 3 of this long discussion, you'll see that I'll start to feel and sound a little different.
I think our enthusiasm is going to slowly drain as these movies go on.
Oh yeah.
Igor, take me back. Take me back to November 22nd, 1995. A little movie gets released, directed by John Lasseter. Do you know what this movie was called?
Toy Story, and it's a story about toys.
It's a story about toys. And it's literally the entire thing is a marketing scheme to sell little plastic fucking cowboys. And guess what? It awesome.
Fucking worked.
It's
fucking worked.
Awesome.
God damn it.
A bunch of nerds revolutionize computer animation to tell a story about little robot, little fucking things, little toys, little dumb little...
It's absolutely groundbreaking. And, my favorite thing about that is that, especially in retrospect, this movie hits Uncanny Valley so hard. When people think of the Uncanny Valley period in Hollywood animation, they think of that movie. Mm. However, the plot is so fucking good that you're still with it the whole time and you don't care. Have you seen, all the kids have the same faces, the dog animation, everything about that is just absolutely weird. And somebody was showing it to me in the modern day, I would still watch it because it's a great story. Sometimes really shitty CGI does not matter in certain stories because the story is just so freaking compelling. And in Toy Story, just centering the whole thing about this magic of childhood and stories having a mission of protecting their children, protecting their happiness, it creates an extremely high stakes environment in a story that people can connect with. And that is the beginning of Pixar. That is the first sound that they made into the void, and it rang so many hearts and minds that if only people knew what is coming ahead next.
Dude, no way. There's no way you could know. And I kind of opened this facetiously, acknowledging that Toy Story on its face is a market. It's a ploy to sell little fucking Buzz Lightyears and get your kids to wear, Woody diapers and make a bazillion, $1 woodillion off of the marketing rights. But for the premise literally being about toys, I don't think you could do it better than this. At least not from a script perspective. I think I have some minor gripes about the first movie. A lot of it does have to do with how you highlighted, Igor, how it's aged. The animation hasn't aged especially well, where there's some movies on this list that I don't think you could ever do better than how they were done. But Toy Story, because of the limitations of the time, definitely has kind of aged like milk visually. But man, the fucking story and the voice cast and like the direction is really clever, and you got that what's his name? Help me out. Randy Newman.
Well,
Randy Newman does the score.
Yeah. Randy Newman.
And we get our iconic little "You've Got a Friend in Me" moment. This movie is cinema history. Like, no doubt about it. With every passing year, I think Toy Story gets more and more cemented in kind of like the canon. And it really is a landmark film, I think.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies that you have to show your kids. Like, you know, we grew up watching them when they were first released, but we have to know that there are certain movies out there, certain animations out there, that the kids have to see while they're young, because it really plants some important stuff into them. So, like, you know, the adults don't necessarily have to. I'm so happy to say we live in the age where there's quite a lot of movies like this. That's like, you know, in the past it used to be, you gotta be like, you read a lot of books, you gotta be literate to be in touch with like thoughts and emotions and such.
Yeah.
Now we live at a time where film can do this for you with the same exact thing. It can just like make you feel like a more rounded person by experiencing certain really well crafted stories. But I'm just so happy to say that we live at a time where you can show this to children and they will literally be better people by watching those movies.
Yeah, this is kind of a sidebar, but to your point, Igor, I'm really fucking sick of hearing the argument of like, oh, you know, the movie doesn't have to be good, it's just a cartoon. It's just for kids. That's bullshit. Mm-hmm. Children are so much more impressionable than any of us as adults. You should be putting more effort into what you are showing kids. You should be putting more effort into the stories that you are telling kids. Because, you know, it's nice when you can go and watch it with, like, for me, I'm a camp counselor. I love being able to put on a fucking kids movie that I can get into. You know, like Toy Story. Like, you can relate to these themes and these characters as an adult. But, like, you want what you're showing your children to inform who they end up being as grown-ups. And if what you're showing them is just like fucking Cocomelon slop, then they're gonna be a slop person. So like, I just don't. I think Pixar is living, breathing proof, at least early Pixar, that like what you show your children can be more. And I would argue Toy Story is that, because it's a movie it's about ego. It's about the fear of becoming obsolete. The central conflict is Woody not wanting to let go of the past, and that's crazy for a movie for kids.
Someone who's depressed in their 50s can watch that movie and go like, oh, I needed to hear that. Thank you. I don't feel bad anymore. Like, you know?
Yeah. And it's just awesome.
Feel less
so
bad.
Many iconic scenes. And I think the second act gets like kind of messy when you get into a lot of like the Sid stuff. It just becomes like a little more confusing than a lot of the other Toy Story movies, but I still do think it's just wonderful. Like, it's just a wonderful classic. I'd give it like a solid high 8 out of 10.
Oh no, I would say 9 for me, only because again, like, I mean, I cannot help but factor historical value into my ratings of certain movies. So I have to give it a 9 because, like, animation and no movie is perfect. I have to add one more thing before I move on. It applies to every single thing we talk about, like every movie we talk about today. It applies to that too. But like, you mentioned that animation has to be better at storytelling, be appealing to all humans. And you know, the fact that good stories make better kids, they make better people. That's absolutely true. That's why we have to be even better at it. But also, like, I just think that animation, it takes so many, like, just hundreds of thousands of work hours of so many incredibly talented artists. We might as well not waste any of their time making animation that is just meant to distract your children, you know, instead of actually enriching them. Like, make sure that they're making stories that can move everyone. Make sure that they're making stories that can just be this impactful, because you know, the craft that we're discussing here is, like, it is impactful. It has so much profound effect on so many people in this modern day and age, where arguably when everything is so interconnected, this is more important than ever to do these things, right? And holy fuck, this studio is a perfect example of just, like, revealing us the power that this has.
Yeah, I mean, Toy Story, as far as cinematic turning points, I think it's the equivalent of Snow White. Like the release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, or the release
and the success of that followed, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like the Jazz Singer. It's like the first movie with audio. It's so
in a way, absolutely
groundbreaking. I think the first feature length 3D animated movie. Like, there had been music videos and stuff.
Yeah.
But that was all more experimental, and like that stuff is really dated. Like, if you go back and you look at the Dire Straits' Money for Nothing music video, it looks like fucking shit. Especially compared to Toy Story, and especially compared to everything that Toy Story has welcomed in. With our two ratings combined, Toy Story gets an 8.5 out of 10. I'd say that's a really solid start. That's a passing grade. That's funny. So you say A Bug's Life is underrated. I'm about to fucking shit on it.
I know.
So hit me with your Bug's Life take.
I just want to say it is underrated because there's a lot to not like about this movie, and I completely understand it. It's just like, I personally am a big fan of movies that have like a collective / uprising kind of like, you know, motifs of like getting away with the oppressive leadership kind of situation. Because, you know, we're talking about a movie where they're being subjugated through fear, and they're putting every day of their working lives to making this giant pile of food. Like, it's very beautifully translates into like this really specific type of oppressive narrative, and, you know, like,
remind you of home.
Absolutely, except the ending doesn't. You know, it actually ends well. What happened at my home ended horribly, and it just keeps getting worse and worse every day. However, in the movie, at the end, the ants really, like, you know, the Hopper says it himself, and I honestly, like, his character, if it wasn't for Hopper's character, I would not like this movie nearly as much as I do. But, like, Hopper does say, like, let one of them rise against you, and then they all will rise against you, because they have the true power. And it's lovely, in my opinion. Just like that messaging is beautiful, it's compelling, and planting that into the minds of young children like myself when I watched it, it really left its mark. And like, also just everything that is technical that is in that movie. Like, anytime Flick has like the cutting machine that he uses at the beginning, how it gets implemented by everyone in the end of the movie, when they all build a bird collectively. Like, all of those scenes and all of those motifs of just, like, collective work, I guess, and organization, and this, like, collective excitement that everyone has working towards the bigger goal. Like, an individual ant can only do so much, which is why they all work together. So, like, that messaging on, like, a purely, you know, even childish, subliminal level was just extremely exciting for me to, like, consume as a little boy. And it definitely left a mark. So that's the main reason why I like this movie so much. And it's hard for me to shit on it.
I will give you the underlying communist tones.
Okay.
That is
fantastic.
A dub. I will also give you Kevin Spacey as Hopper.
Just pure evil. Pure fucking evil.
I'm so glad that Kevin Spacey has never done anything controversial, because he's one of the greatest actors.
Bro, like,
of all time.
that ass.
I'm so glad that he's managed to keep his nose clean and stay
Early
out of trouble.
2000s were like the to today's time were like the 70s to the 90s. So many actors just like spiraled, and something very horrible ended up happening to them.
Even though that character does kind of exist in the Spacey shadow, I think he's the highlight of the movie. Hopper, the villain. Like, and especially because so many Pixar movies today have really shitty villains. But I feel like he's just, like, works. I feel like he works especially well. And, like, has a certain villainous charm to him that a lot of, even some of the, I would say, superior Pixar movies don't have. To me, it's more just in, like, the ensemble cast. One of the things that really grates me about a lot of these Pixar movies is the fact that they feel the need to have just, like, a fucking funny guy. You know, it's the Tow Mater effect. And this movie, like, I feel like every single one of the bugs that's not Flick is the funny guy. And they are all just so fucking annoying. And, like, Toy Story doesn't really have that. They've got, like, sillier characters. They've got Mr. Potato Head, and they've got fucking but I guess Rex. But all of them kind of have like something to do. Where I don't feel like a lot of the ensemble. I feel like the ensemble's just there to be fucking.
Well, like
annoying
the ants,
and keep the kids
the ants early on definitely are. Like, I understood the structure of their society and stuff, but just to like underline the point that you said about how annoying they can be, like when I watched it as I was little, I was like, Flick is such a good, powerful like inventor protagonist that he will save these ants even though they are collectively total idiots. Like, it was so apparent to me that
they like don't
like the lack of personal qualities that they had. Like, you know, the queen is so bad at learning this shit. It's like she started learning this yesterday, and the way in which that council was like assembled, it's like they were bullying him. And I mean, obviously it's like it's a good character moment for Flick because like he's the protagonist, he gets to experience that. But in the context of like ant society trying to run itself, why are they this incompetent? Like, what's the problem? Like, I know that they're all living in fear and subjugated. It's supposed to be like dysfunctional, but they're not even good at that. And how come he gets to do all of this smart shit? Like, he's clearly right, but the movie has to happen, so they have to be like bullying him essentially. And it just didn't make sense to me. Like, Flick knows that they need to be saved because of how idiotic they are. There's just like the way my baby brain made sense of it, because I was like, they're idiots, but he's gonna save them anyway because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I can understand why you would like it. I appreciate that you also understand why I don't.
Oh yeah, like the character work is just inferior compared to the Toy Story, compared to like literally, you know, all the following movies: Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles.
Yeah,
like they're all going to have such insane fucking characters, and each and every one of them is just superior to vast majority of characters we see in A Bug's Life, for sure.
We were just talking for so long about how poorly that the Toy Story animation has aged. I think Toy Story looks better than A Bug's Life.
I can see that.
Because at least Toy Story used it has the conceit of being, oh, well, they're toys. Yeah. They're not supposed to look real. Yeah. When they have that plasticky, filmy quality to them, it's because they're toys. It's because they're made of plastic. But the bugs do not look organic. The grass in the world that they exist in does not look organic. And while I recognize that Pixar was doing groundbreaking work in animation for the time, you also have to kind of call a spade, and it's just a fucking unpleasant movie to look at.
Yeah, it has not aged too well.
And like when I think of Pixar movies, and when I think of the golden age of Pixar, I completely gloss over A Bug's Life.
As many people do, and honestly, it deserves to be just because of how high the bar is for the rest of the movies alone, right? But so there's one redeeming. So I completely agree that the uncanny valley is real, and like you're creating anthropomorphized bugs in this case. And while some of those designs do work, some of them just do not work at all. And unfortunately, most of the ant designs just don't look good, even in like the confines of like the technical limitations of that period. They're still breaking ground. It's still like before even 2000 has happened. But the thing is, there are scenes like, let's say when at the beginning when they know that they're about to get attacked and everyone goes underground. There's this really kind of like spooky, intense soundtrack happening while all of the ants are running through the ant house. Like, that was extremely atmospheric, and whenever you see like a big group of ants and they kind of start moving their limbs together, it actually looks and feels like an actual like giant pile of ants moving in a real place. And the other instance would be the bird. Anytime the bird is about to attack them and like the fucking beak goes into like the camera and does that thing, like that's genuinely horrifying because that's what it is like to them. And to me, it's just an example of like they evolved the method, like evolving method of Pixar animators. We're gonna see later of like, you know, how they would take their animators to Paris to like go into the sewers and meet the rats to like animate Ratatouille properly, and they would go into like restaurants to animate food. Like they would go above and beyond to use the craft of animation that they're like basically crafting from scratch because nobody has done this before. And they're finding ways of like incorporating these fun, creative, you know, inspiration bits into the picture. And while Toy Story was a triumph in just purely technical way of how do you make computer do this. A Bug's Life was like, okay, we figured out the technical components of how to make a movie. Now we're going to start fucking around with how to make the visuals most compelling. How do we use this newly created medium to make a bunch of ants feel more real? How do we make a bird feel like, an apex predator that is like a fucking T-Rex? Like, that bird was scarier to me than a T-Rex would be in, like, some other movies where a T-Rex is supposed to be scary. It's because it is so beautifully crafted from the perspective, right? And the flight animations, too, like, when they were flying through all those places. Again, does it overall redeem the aged animation? Absolutely fucking not. But just like Toy Story, I think that it does have a really good story. And the journey of that protagonist is just so compelling. And I'm totally like drunk on nostalgia thinking about all of that. But I know for a fact that I'm not alone. In fact, most people probably feel the same way about it, I dare to say.
Well, and our experience of art is entirely subjective. If you are having a deep emotional connection to it because of how it made you feel when you were a kid, I don't think that's an invalid reason to love it. If people are telling you that you're not allowed to that you're not allowed to like shit that you liked when you were a kid, those people are wrong.
Fuck those people.
Like, I think that the depth of a connection that you develop with media when you're a child is something that sticks with you.
Oh yeah.
So I can understand, like, I'll excuse the nostalgia rose-colored glasses, and I do agree, like, that is the strongest element of the movie. And that's why that was the crux, that was the hook of A Bug's Life and how it was used at Disney World for the longest time. Because for a while, Disney had these premier Bug's Life themed attractions that were it was all about the scale. Yeah. And they had like the massive shoe. I bet when we're in the editing process, we can pull up images of their like Bug's World.
Yeah.
And I do think I will give Bug's Life credit there. It's not, the whole movie wasn't a wash, if you ask me.
Which is a problem in the latest Pixar movies, but not there.
All right, what do you give A Bug's Life? Because I'm on a solid 6 for it.
Yeah, with the nostalgia factored in, it's a 7 for me. So 6.5.
6.5. 6.5 for A Bug's Life.
I can live with that.
We are talking about 1999's Toy Story 2, once again directed by John Lasseter. Tell me what you think of this fucking movie, because I think Toy Story 2 is
remember
amazing.
when, like, back in our times, people used to compare, and they go, like, Toy Story 2 is the better sequel than Shrek 2. And I think that fight was fought for many years. And rightfully so, because Toy Story 2 is just that fucking good. Wonderful, wonderful sequel that expands on the world that we had before. The stakes of the first movie, they are now incorporated into the stakes of the new movie, except we get to go outside of that entire, like, house, and we get to just see what the bigger world would feel and look like. And, like, the biggest achievement of that film, in my opinion, I mean, it has so many, but, like, the one that comes to mind to me personally is the expansion of the world. It's like, okay, if the first movie were like, okay, we're gonna suspend our disbelief, we're gonna imagine, like, the toys in this particular kid's room are alive. We're gonna imagine, like, okay, maybe the neighborhood, right? The toys in the neighborhood are alive, but there's no deeper implication to this. And now we get to see a whole fucking world with cars and cops and adults.
Yes.
And they're selling it anyway. Nobody will know. Not a single human will. It's such an easy concept to fuck up. It is so easy, and I cannot stress this enough. It's so easy when you're making an animated film or a kid's movie to just go, okay, and this is where we suspend our disbelief and just start animating. We do not need to know the details. Just don't ask these questions. This is so iconic because it asks all the right questions, and it frames its story.
Yes, exactly.
Right? It folds its entire plot around a compelling, like, world building and a compelling narrative at the same time. And it's possible, and Toy Story 2 did this, and more sequels need to do this because we need more than Toy Story 2 and Shrek 2 to love this much. There's so much demand for this. Come on. We have so much money in this industry.
Yeah.
Why can't we spend it on more
No,
shit
genuinely,
like this?
and it's so original, so one of a kind, and I think Toy Story is an international, generation-defining success. And then you get Toy Story 2, and it does everything that Toy Story 1 did, and takes it and improves upon it. It makes that amazing sequel. It doesn't reverse any of the character development you have in the first story. Buzz and Woody are now functioning as a team, but you still get like the occasional underlying tension there. And the entire unit of the toys are, you can feel them developing as a community. And with that, the animation is better, and just like that, right? I think Toy Story starts with the initial emotional questions of like, Buzz is replacing Woody, drama ensues. But from there, I think the screenwriters take that base context, take that skeletal structure, and then build the meat around it. Because it's like, I think they did something similar with 2, where they knew that they were going to want to introduce Woody's like family, so to speak. But it's like, okay, how do they find them? Maybe there's a toy collector. What do toy collectors look like in a world where toys are sentient? How do the toys hide from that toy collector? If these toys are antiques, they obviously have history, so let's find out about that history. And it's like, it is so well conceived and so well defined. And it's just, the world feels so rich and lived in. And finding out about Woody's past and like the context of his creation, and the wider world of like Al's Toy Barn, and that weird kind of like perverse collector's culture that like takes toys for what they're not supposed to be. It's like that bastardization of like the childhood joy and wonder is so fucking cool and clever. And then, I mean, everyone, when you think of Toy Story 2, I don't know about you, Igor, but I think about the fucking the Woody refurbishment scene.
Me, you, and everyone else.
You know the one I'm talking about? Like, and it's like, it's thinking about how good that must feel for toys. Like, and it's just so incredible.
This hooked so many kids onto ASMR a long time before it was even a thing on the internet. So yeah, definitely 100%. There's so many beautiful things you can say about Toy Story 2, because it also came from the age where it was okay to make sequels, where nobody would ask, oh, do we need a sequel? Because nobody was scarred by a sequel at that point. Like, you know, we're not even in the 2000s yet. Like, The Matrix didn't even happen yet. You know what I mean? And it was that more innocent time where people could, like, create and innovate and understand why their stories work and expand on their previous ideas. Because I just think that in the modern day and age, so many sequels, even for shows that like season 2 comes out, they always will only ever build on the initial idea. They will not expand on it. And Toy Story 2 is a perfect example of expanding the world, so much so that it warranted the third one. And when we're like, do we need a third one? There was a time, right, when people were like, do we need a third one? The second one was so perfect. I don't want to change anything about it. And then suddenly the third one comes out and we're like, oh my god, we needed it so much, this is amazing. And like, you know, only Pixar can do this. A couple of other companies can do this too, but like, Pixar is undeniably, definitively exceptional at it at this particular period of its existence.
Yeah, I think it's fucking awesome. And I think it's actually, if it's not the same length, it might be a little shorter than Toy Story 1. It's just like bite-sized and so much fun, and I love the adventure element. I love the heist element that they introduce, and it's got a lot of good set pieces.
When they had to cross the road, I was shitting my pants. I was like, you know, just like wrapping your head around the toys existing with other humans, with adults. Because, yeah, the other thing is that, too, like, you watch the first movie, and after you're done watching the first movie, there is a part of your headcanon that, like, it allows you to think that maybe in the end of the day, all of this was just the imagination of the kids, right? Maybe in the end of the day, they don't actually move. But in the second movie, when they have to cross the road, that's when, like, I know for a fact no one's imagining this.
Yes.
They have to be inside cones to dodge these cars, and like the realization that like, okay, they actually move. There's absolutely no way for me to believe in any form that it's someone's imagination, you know. For some reason, that was an extremely profound discovery, and it added so many more stakes there.
Yes.
Because I was like, oh shit, so if the car runs it over, it's gonna break up into a gajillion pieces. This is horrible, man. The implications of this is just insane.
Yeah. And it gets really real really quickly. And because they start to explore, like, the larger world, Toy Story 1 has that closing set piece of Buzz and Woody trying to catch up with the van. Toy Story 2 closes on the airport set piece, which is so clever and so much fun. That's another one of those things, like if you've ever been to an airport and you see how luggage is handled, when you're a kid and you see that shit, you see your bag go off in the baggage claim and go on that endless series of rants, it just like really grabs your imagination. And I think these early Pixar movies were very in tune with like what grabs the imagination of both kids and adults. And I think it's a fine wine, man. It is, the more time goes by, I think Toy Story 2 gets better and better. I think it perfectly complements the original. And, you know, we're 2 for 2. At this point, in 1999, we're 2 for 2 on the Toy Stories. They're both fantastic.
Yep.
For me, I'm gonna hop on and say it's a solid 9 out of 10 for Toy Story 2.
Oh, okay. Me too. It's a 9.
We are in agreement for the first time ever. 2001, the Twin Towers fall. A month and a half later.
Before the towers fell.
Monsters Incorporated.
Yeah.
Starring John Goodman and Billy Crystal.
Yeah. I'm just gonna get this out of the way, but my score for that shit is 10 out of 10.
Just
so you know.
Have to say. So I was coming into this planning on giving Monsters, Inc. a 7. But the more that I think about it,
I'd have to fight you on that one.
The more I have to be like, no, it deserves at least a high 8. Because, I mean, Billy Crystal, John Goodman, like, you've got this wonderful cast. You've got fantastic animation. You have a score from Randy Newman that I'd say probably rivals Toy Story. It's really solid. I think I'm gonna give it an 8. I can honestly say that it's aged better in my head. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna hit a solid 8. Now you tell me why I'm a fucking bitch.
Yeah, so maybe there's just a couple of things you might not know about this movie. But when I think about how it was made, I increase the score even further. But also, the biggest thing that I'm gonna whip out and hit you with for being a little bitch is my big, strong nostalgia factor.
Yeah, totally.
And it is girthy, and it will just whack. Anyway, so as nostalgia factor aside, to me that was like one of my favorite, most stylized movies I've ever seen when I was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
Maybe 6. And it really hit me because the tonality of Monsters, Inc. is just very different compared to the previous animations. Because, like, yes, obviously, like, it looks like it's for kids, but it's less so for kids than the previous ones. In just the way it was, like, created, in my opinion. Just because, like, showing scary monsters actually, like, you know, in these kind of horror settings of, you know, nighttime bed when a child's fantasy is extremely active at night.
Yeah, and it also that's an interesting point because it's kind of a fun screenwriter's challenge. It's like take the things that children are most frightened of and turn it into spin it so it can be something that kids love and kids find comfort and joy in. Yeah. That's an interesting point that I had not considered regarding the Monsters Inc. thing.
And it's wonderful. It just triggers the shit out of your imagination, and that's where they start. And then they build a whole world off of that. So to me, it's just like there's so much room for comedy. There's so much room for the sense of humor that like we're used to with the Toy Story and Just like but also so much room for zany characters, like they kind of tried with Bug's Life, except these characters are filled with personality, and they're filled with, like, plot moments, and, like, Randall's design is just fantastic, along with Sully, along with Mike. Like, they all have just these different textures. They absolutely nailed Sully's fur, and, like, this just goes back to the theme of them pushing the creative boundaries, further, pushing the technical boundaries further with this movie. In order to accomplish so many things they had to do there, like, they, again, had to go and do things that nobody has done before. And, like, all of that fur design for Sully is gonna then evolve into what they did in Ratatouille. Like, it's always pushing its creative boundaries and technical boundaries at the same time, which we know about Pixar. This is, like, still gonna be a recurring theme for a while. However, what I love about the production is that, and this is, like, a more known fact, it's kind of like when Aragorn hits his toe and nobody shuts up about it. When they were recording the voice for Boo, they just had a little girl play in the sound recording studio, and all the sounds that Boo makes they were made in the act of playing with this little girl, and then they used that in the movie. So, like, in a way, there's just more genuine sound and voice acting in all of this than most animation has to offer, in a way. So I love that personally, because they just, like, dig out this authenticity and they work with it, right? Imagine being an animator who is like, okay, I'm gonna spend a year animating this 30-second sequence where, like, Boo is jumping around and laughing. You will have to listen to that sound of a kid who decided to feel a moment of laughter, like, very genuinely, over and over and over again for all of these months of work. And, like, why is it worth it? It's because in the end of the day, it creates an extremely textured, extremely real feeling. Yeah, just like characters, the music, the insane imagination that goes into creating the fucking doors that are sliding everywhere. Just the factory sequence alone. Like, to me, that is actually, like, a big precursor to the WALL-E aesthetic that they will develop later. Like,
sure.
Monsters, Inc. is one of those movies, in my eyes, where, like, okay, we had the Toy Story, we know how to do that. We had the Bug's Life, we know they can make more than one type of movie. When they made Monsters, Inc. for the first time in 2001, Pixar was like, okay, we're now starting to understand just what the capacities of this creative medium is. And that's why I'm giving this movie a 10 out of 10.
I did not know about the Boo thing. I genuinely
It's fantastic.
Did not know
I love that.
When I was looking into the production of Monsters, Inc., the thing that stuck out to me was how painstakingly they decided to render Sully's fur. That was a big element for them. It was making him textured, and, like, I know the kind of hook is that she thinks he's a cat, he's Kitty, and it's this very cute dynamic. That knowing that she was an actual little girl and that they built the animation and the character around, like, the recordings they got of this kid is beyond fucking heartwarming, and, like, does genuinely improve how I view this
so
movie.
Wholesome.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I feel like there's a lot of, like, silly shit that I don't really love, but I think if I was to go back, like, I feel like the movie takes a lot of weird side quests, like I don't know why the Yeti needs to be there.
Unnecessary.
There's just a lot of, like, kind of kids movie bloat on it. But I think maybe I need to rewatch it knowing what you just told me about Boo, and that would probably affect my viewing quite a bit.
It definitely affects mine a whole bunch.
And keep that in mind just from, like, a filmmaking perspective. Because to me, the crux of this movie is those vocal performances. This is some of their best. And as far as, like, soundscape, Pixar movies, we talk all about the animation because the animation is constantly so groundbreaking, but the thing that a lot of us remember and think about a lot of these Pixar movies is the audio, like the sound design, in the case of a lot of these earlier ones, the voice performances, like Billy Crystal and John Goodman. That's an amazing fucking duo on its face right there.
Chemistry.
So, and then meshing that with having a genuine kid there present in the studio and building your movie around that childlike joy, I think is really wonderful. And that's another really good like hook, a good challenge for these creators to kind of build their movie around.
It's very real.
And yeah, I think aesthetically, it's a huge victory. That, like you said, that industrial aesthetic with the doors flying every which way, I just think it looks so wonderful and so whimsical. So yeah, I think I need to watch it again now, knowing what I know. I'm gonna stick with a tentative 8, and we'll just, I think together we'll give it a 9. Know that is subject to change.
You honestly reminded me about the Bigfoot Yeti sequence, and I was just like, yeah, that's like too many yellow snow jokes. But I'm really happy that we landed on that.
Yeah, it's just like juvenile. What came out in 2003? So you were born in 2002 as well, right? Or you were a little older than I am.
I'm actually 1997.
That actually makes sense that you're so nostalgic for Monsters, Inc. Finding Nemo came out in 2003. I was 1 year old when this film came out. Almost exactly 1 year.
No wonder.
And
I was sentient and aware. Yeah. 2003. No, I was 6. I was 6 when it came out.
I think it's good. I think Finding Nemo's
fantastic.
Good.
Yeah,
I'll ride for Nemo.
I'm giving it a 10.
I'm a little more decided in Nemo as a 7. I was wobbly about Monsters Inc. I'm pretty rigid about Nemo because I think Ellen DeGeneres is so fucking annoying.
Yes.
And I think this is another movie that just fucks around a lot. Like visually, I would put it close to a 10. I just think the characters in this are a lot less charming than Monsters Inc.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
And I feel like it establishes itself as a bit more of like a kids movie.
Ooh, really? You're telling me that the beginning is not dark enough?
It's pretty fucking scary. That barracuda's scary.
The implication that everyone, including the best wife on earth, are dead, just like that.
The mother.
I'm just saying. Like, I don't think this is pulling any punches. Cause like, if it just only happened that one time, I get it. But then, when the sharks try to eat them, when they are in the abyss and that deep diving fucker shows up, and honestly, to some people, the jellyfish sequence and when the whale consumes them, those are not like subtle topics that are trying to pull its punches for the kids. You know what I mean? Like, I think that Finding Nemo in as much as an animated film that is catering to children and adults, it's a movie about the harsh realities of what it's like to be a fish in the ocean. And like just how that reality is like, because like a lot of things want to eat you. There's very specific rules of like canonical of where to go or not to go. Like you're just trying to survive. And Finding Nemo is like they took everything they learned from the previous movies they did, and they're like, okay, now we're gonna be underwater the whole time, and we're gonna show you this alien race of living beings essentially with their own social structures. The whole time we're aware that they're fish because, we're humans watching it. And we're gonna put them in situations where, like, his fucking son is kidnapped. And he has to go find it. It's like he's kidnapped by basically gods.
Yeah.
They're probably not gonna see each other ever again. And because of the detail and the grit of the movie, because, like, it starts off with all of those other children being exterminated, we get the fact that if they don't see each other again, you're actually kind of okay. Because it means that his dad got to live and stayed in the ocean. And, he might just live out in a fish tank.
Yeah.
Like, as far as we humans are concerned, that is the extent of what fish can do. But then the movie happens. And the way in which it unfolds, right? Very little of it is on Earth. Like, very little of it is on land. So they have full creative agency with creating these characters. Like, I fucking love the sharks. The sharks are some of my favorite conflicted villains I've ever seen. They're incredibly textured. Like,
sharks are
the
cool,
fucking the oath that they give, the vegetarian sharks. Like, you see, this is how you do vegetarian sharks.
Fish are friends, not food. It's cute.
Timeless,
it's charming.
So the thing you said about Dory, I also find her annoying. I think she's more annoying than Donkey. But here's the thing, it has to do with her animation and her acting style, and this is going to connect to what I talked about before when I was talking about the ants, and just like the way in which Pixar animators can, just like everyone works in those teams, how they fuse character creation with like visual observation of the world around them. If you've ever seen those, I do not remember what species Dory is, but like those blue fishes and many others, they have this quality about how they move. They like they dart around. They are really fast and jittery, and they basically build a whole character just by observing them. So the way that she talks, the way she her short-term memory is not good. It's all of these little fish-related thoughts and emotions encapsulated in a single character. We couldn't have Marvin be any of that. Nor could we have Nemo be any of that, because he's a fucking heartbroken father whose wife was killed and then all of his kids were dead, and now he's trying to rescue the last one who is a little deformed, so he's really worried. Like every emotional, like the emotional capacity of that animated fish have been stretched to an absolute limit. So we need characters that are not like that, who don't struggle with that at all. The thing about Dory that is really interesting, though, for all of like the annoyance that she's causing, for all the incompetency in the plot and such, first she has really important plot moments. Like she knows how to read, but also like we cannot underestimate just how important that is in the context that they're in. But also she carries a lot of that fish related light-hearted stuff. But most important thing about Dory that I just want to like bring across is that as I was growing up watching that over and over again, I know a lot of people that like struggle with mental illnesses that can go like, Dory is the representation. It lets a child watching it early on who might have a, let's say, not a short-term memory problem, but OCD, right? Or just like ADHD, any kind of, just like lack of focus or hyper-focus or something. They can see Dory's character, they can see her hyperactivity, and I'm not saying they want to relate to her, but they see that exists. And I cannot stress enough how important this can be within, like, we're going to, like, child psychology, child development fields here, but this is what animators should do, and they do. Like, in Pixar, they absolutely do that. And, that's why it's so important, is because she is annoying, but at the same time, she hits a whole bunch of beats, and she's like that, not because her life was simple. We saw exactly how hard a life of a fish in Finding Nemo's universe can get. We saw what we saw what Marvin went through. But now we can assume that Dory also had some really fucked up things happen to her that has caused her to have the short-term memory loss. She could have been attacked and like got hurt.
Well, and we get to explore
and there's a whole movie that expands on that because they're trying to like tap into that appeal of the character, and I honestly think that's the main reason why they made that the sequel, is to expand on her character, to understand what kind of background she came from, and how hard it is to like grow up with a disability. In Finding Nemo, she's just a really annoying fish.
Are you sure it wasn't to make money?
Of course it was to make money, but again, right, I think that this is an example of taking the best advantage you can of the resources you have to tell the most compelling story you can. And again, if other studios did not waste their money in such insane quantities, I would probably have other things to add on that are deeply negative. But I don't. I'm trying to advocate here for like good use of resources for film and animation that makes compelling stories. So there you go.
I still find her annoying.
I hear ya.
I get it, and when we hit our DreamWorks video, I'm gonna come across pretty hypocritical, because like for me the best example of like how to do the annoying sidekick thing, Puss in Boots, The Last Witch.
God.
When you've got Perito, that
oh
that
my
cute
god, I
little
hate
dog,
Perito with so much passion.
Really? Because I fuck with him. Because I fuck with Perito because they work him into the script in a way that's like, see, you can be annoying and still be a good person. And they're very deliberately making him kind of obnoxious because it's part of the movie's message. Like, he's the ultimate foil to Puss, who's just outrageously suave and constantly in control of every situation. He's just
not in control ever. And you see, Perito is also hurt.
He's completely
out of control. But Perito is also hurt. Like, definitely. Like, I just want to connect to that imagery, too. By the way, I like don't hate Burrito. If it wasn't for like the therapy dog moment that he does, I would have hated him. But I do see how his character is extremely compelling compared to so many others. But what I want to say is that just like Dory, Burrito has like illustrations of what led him to be this way. Burrito has lived an extremely hard life.
Yes.
And like I think that message doesn't get lost on me. With Burrito, it's more straightforward. With Dory, it's more subtle. But I think it's the same for both characters.
Yeah.
It is absolutely insane the type of stakes that they have. And, you know, the movie is not lacking its scary moments, its goofy moments, its funny moments. To me, this is just Pixar at its finest, yet again doing something really, really amazing.
This, I will agree that there is some scary shit in Nemo. Mm-hmm. I was really scared of the anglerfish. And even now I look at that and like, wow, that's really unsettling. Yeah. With like no pupils.
Yeah, 100%.
That's scary shit. I think I'm a little less amped about it than you are, mostly just because I find a lot of the characters, particularly Dory, to be like pretty annoying and like I don't like watching them. It's a movie that I don't find myself rushing back to it because I'm not really interested in a lot of the characters or their plight. However, credit where credit is due, it pushed digital rendering of water forward decades. And like it really changed the bar for how that type of stuff is animated. And like took this insane challenge of telling this whole story underwater and really ran with it. For me, it's a solid 7.
Dude, the water rendering, like, they really got out of their way to, like, stare at particles in the water for probably days. And there are versions of the movie where the water is rendered so well that they literally had to go back and make it less realistic because the particle effects just did not, like, they looked too good for it to feel like an animation. And they had to go and they had to make it less detailed because it was too much. And again, like, that just goes to show, right? Like, this is how many? Like, this is their 5th movie, right? 1, 2, yeah. This is the 5th movie that Pixar has made, and even here they struggle with it being too realistic. Like, if there is a company that can truly trailblaze on like a 3D animation technology, Pixar is just like, without a question, that's them, you know, in that period of history.
So if you're a 10 and I'm a 7, that's a solid like 8.5.
Yep. Which I can live with, even though, like, you know, being inside the whale.
Yeah, that's definitely a passing grade.
I mean, being inside the whale, like, you know, the entire like high stakes sequences that this movie is just chock full of, I just find them to be really beautiful. And I think that, like, I cannot tell what is more impactful, like the Monsters Inc. Like fighting sequences, or the ways in which they fight for their lives in Finding Nemo. Like, obviously both are magnificent in their own right. I just think that watching a fish that like doesn't have hands survive the situations where like they're being eaten alive, you know, or like trying to be eaten by a shark or by a deep sea creature that is just like so monstrously looking that, like, you know, I feel like so many kids have fear of deep sea because of that fucking scene. How it like slowly just emerges behind them from the darkness is just like, wow. Also, like, sorry, this just made me realize this because I haven't thought about this movie for a while. It's just really good, and I don't come back to it, not because I don't like it, but because the themes are really heavy and I don't want to like feel like it necessarily. Like, I just don't want to suffer through the opening. Not because like it gets to me, but because it got to me as a child. And I'm just like, yeah, they're not pulling their punches.
Yeah.
And it just feels like the reality of like being a fish in the ocean. And yeah, so that's all I got to say about that movie. It's just fantastic. Like when the light shows up in the dark, right? And Dory starts to get distracted.
Yeah, that angler.
Yeah,
scene.
but also like just to show like when I talk about like the reality of being a fish in the ocean, when that light shows up in the dark, you see Dory get excited by it because, you know, Dory is stupid. She does that. She gets excited by random shit. But Marvin is excited too he's also like completely distracted by this light. He's not even angry at Dory anymore. He's just talking to her about like, oh, I'm gonna be your friend, I'm gonna be your best friend. Like, in my mind, like as a child watching it, I just felt like he was hypnotized by it too. I felt like even if you're not a stupid fish, you're still hypnotized by the light because of this special psychic properties that it has, you know? And then you see that fucking face of the anglerfish come from the back, and you're like, oh no, oh, we're so fucked, man.
Yeah, it's so scary.
So
it is so scary.
Yeah, PIXAR is on the road with like just excellent track record so far, just excellent.
The vocal performances, Helen Hunt as Mrs. Incredible.
Oh, she's
You've
fantastic.
got
Okay, so the thing about Incredibles that I definitely want to add is that there are certain movies that many of them are in the Pixar catalog that I want to like show to people that try to learn storytelling, because they are just excellent at just like really nailing a certain element of storytelling. When it comes to Incredibles, I think it's pacing. Not at any point does this movie slow down. If you feel like there is not a single unnecessary scene, not a single unnecessary moment, not a single unnecessary like frame in that movie. And it's because it is so laser focused, not just on its plot and its characters, what it's trying to say, and the dynamic. It is laser focused on the flow.
really
Yeah.
not. It's like, what is the point? What is the point of
They
this?
kept it there. They kept it there to entertain you, but not
Yes.
to keep the flow. They no longer
No.
prioritize the flow. They no longer prioritize all of these story moments that make it doesn't just make the film enjoyable, it makes it perfect. They just don't think about
Yes.
it anymore. And when they were making the sequel, it showed, right? Like exactly what you're saying, right? A scene that would work as a perfect small addition to it that people will appreciate, right? If it's a separate
Yes.
movie. Like nothing is going to take away from it. But you could have made a movie that just flows so good, the scene just doesn't have a space in it. And it's hard to do. It takes immense skill, and I'm sure, like, I'm certain it takes some magic too. Like, because nobody can ensure that your movie is going to be good. Not unless you're Pixar in before 2010. You know what I mean?
And so many of these movies that market themselves towards children and stupid adults really lean into the like minion goo goo gaga shit. It's just like not fucking. It talks down to kids. It doesn't make the movie any more interesting. But
Yep.
it's like, fucking 55-year-old DMV employees want to go smoke a pack of Camel Reds outside the theater, then go sit down
Yep.
and watch this baby dick around with a raccoon for 15 minutes. It's like not interesting, or it doesn't tell you anything about yourself. The Incredibles in some other movies that we'll get to later really stand out from my childhood because they are like genuinely illuminating and have something
Yep.
to say. Incredibles has some
Yep.
really interesting commentary on exceptionalism. And like almost
Yeah.
like it's almost like a takedown of Randian absolutism in a way. Like it's really unique. And a lot of these other movies lose that oomph
Yeah.
and that originality in the just like dicking about, in the Jack
Yeah.
fighting the raccoon.
It's an example of a sequel that did not expand enough. It's a sequel
Totally.
that truly committed to the idea of the first movie, but it did not grow at all past it, and in many cases it underperformed quite severely, which
Yeah, and
makes
we'll
it
have
so
a lot
sad.
to say. We'll have a lot to say when we get to Incredibles 2.
Oh yeah,
'Cause,
but
yeah.
But just educate the masses, goddammit. The thing about Cars, notice how we're less excited to talk about this right away. And
yeah, it's immediately, we're just kind of like deflated.
Yeah. If I was to compare Cars to most animated movies that other companies made, I would have chose Cars most of the time in most instances, because it is a really good movie. I would even say it's great, because the first thing that comes to mind is music. Second thing that comes to mind is the character dynamic and like just the development, and it's very laid back and it feels very American for some reason. It's because of the types of characters, right? And the other thing I gotta say is that like the speed and the designs of the characters, like, you know, the internet is right now chock full of people theorizing what the fuck is on the inside of those organisms, because like they have teeth and tongues and eyes, but at the same time they have engines, and if you pop the hood, like there's an engine there, which, you know, the second fucking movie expanded on. But Jesus, this is horrifying. But you see, the thing about that movie is that like they definitely wanted to keep having fun, right? They push boundaries with every film they have made thus far. And they did it about talking fish, they did it about insects, they did it about living sentient toys. And with The Incredibles, they actually did it with, like, you know, actual humans being main characters, with completely transcending the uncanny valley in case that actually makes it compelling. Like, Incredibles aged so well. It's not going to get worse than that because it's beautiful. With Cars, they were like, okay, we defeated Uncanny Valley. Can we make vehicles do this? So in a way, Cars has a similar aesthetic to toys when it comes to just like creative inspiration. Like, yeah, so kids like to imagine their toys to be alive. And some kids, they play with cars and other vehicles. So they also think that they could be alive. There's like a soul inside of them. It's not that that universe idea was bad or unimaginative. It was fantastic. It's just, I feel like compared to all the previous movies that the Pixar made, it just does not blow you out of the water as much. And it is, in my opinion, like, I'm only lowering its score because of the content, like, you know, the content that is surrounding it.
I think every kid's movie ultimately boils down to a convoluted plot to sell you merchandise. And Cars is just the laziest. It's like, they're literally just, it's worse than Toy Stories. Because with Toy Story, there's kind of questions to be asked, and like the premise of Toy Story is genuinely interesting, but the premise of Cars, and hence the kind of like collective panic of like, what the fuck are these demon things? It's just nonsensical. Yeah. And I do think that they like were able to do a decent amount of work to make the premise logical and interesting, like. At the very, like you said, with that kind of Americana aesthetic, it does, I would say, just like Toy Story, does more than it should to be an engaging movie. It is better than the concept deserves to be. Yeah. The problem to me is that the concept is just so stupid. And you can't really see this being anything other than a money-making scheme. And this is another one I was bitching about. Dory, dude. Mater is awful. Oh, yeah. It is genuinely...
Yeah, it's really hard to redeem him for his
awful. And, like, this doesn't... Even with Nemo, where I don't like it as much because the characters are somewhat lacking, at least Nemo has... Like Marlin is cool. And some of the fish that Nemo meets in the tank are okay. But I genuinely, there's no one in Cars besides like maybe Lightning McQueen, and then Doc, which is hilariously Paul Newman's last performance, are like the characters just aren't that engaging. The world doesn't make a lot of sense. It's pretty clunky conceptually. I think like the hero's journey is like fine. Just overall, it's like you said, compared to the caliber of what we've come to expect from Pixar from these first 12 years of their existence, this really falls short. I honestly, I don't think I could in good conscience give this higher than a 6. I'm gonna say a low 6.
I'm giving it a 7 for like a handful of redeeming qualities, because I do have to acknowledge that if it wasn't for the surrounding movies, I would have still really liked Cars. And so the reason why I'm giving it a 7, I'm just thinking of a couple of scenes, and like the thing that you mentioned about Toy Story, I think that one aspect that it is definitely missing is the suspension of disbelief. While Toy Story goes like, okay, you would normally suspend your disbelief watching this kind of movie, we're gonna invite you not to do that. We're gonna invite you to say, yeah, this is so well built, we're gonna make you trust us. With Cars, it's like the opposite is in effect, which is also a positive, because that's just how your imagination functions. The Cars is asking you to suspend your disbelief and then just operate from there. So you kind of let the fantasy flow in a way that is just more messy, in a way that is more play-like, which I think works for the first movie quite a lot, because then you're like, oh, the little bugs are also cars.
Yeah.
And here's why I think it has like certain winning qualities to it that allows it to be that way. The conflict that the cars experience, I mean, if it wasn't built around racing, I do not think it would have worked as a story altogether. But the bond that, like, let's say Lightning McQueen experiences with Doc Hudson, right? His whole legacy of how he got really badly injured in a race and then became too old and they told him to go. McQueen's like disillusionment, that whole arc, I think that's fantastic. It's a story about ending someone's narcissism by making friends. And it's fantastic. Like, he had to go to the lowest of the low. He had to roll out of the truck and then find himself in the middle of nowhere to be introduced to these other characters. Some of them literally lived his life and became wiser and helped him navigate his own bullshit situation that he put himself in with his lifetime of narcissism. So the one thing that, like, you know, one of the things that are really winning for me in Cars are the messaging. It's a really good message about going like, yeah, Mater is an annoying, stupid character who is repulsive in many ways. But if you are a narcissist like McQueen, who lived his whole life in like complete denial of other people's feelings and intentions and shit, it's getting exposed and introduced, maybe forced to interact with people like that, who can make you better.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, narcissism is bad, and I would always live in a world of Maters, where everyone is stupid and goofy, than live in the world of like early Lightning McQueens, where everyone is a fucking pretentious, materialistic bastard who doesn't actually have a fucking soul. And, you know, other characters, right, like Sully. Sully is such an important character. Sorry, Sally. I'm pronouncing it like Sully from Monsters, Inc. But yeah, no, Sally is just really cool. The implication with, like, the tattoo thing, like, it also asks so many questions, but I love that because it made it funny for adults. So yeah, and then lastly, like, the messaging is just so powerful that I cannot give it a 6. I am a big sucker for, like, everyone's time here was used wisely. Everyone's, you know, like, creativity, everyone's imagination was kind of pushed to the max with the limitations of the idea. And they told an extremely good and compelling story about how even if you're a fucking champion, you still have to remain a human being, be good to people around you first and foremost, regardless of whether you're succeeding or failing.
Yeah.
Because your friends will be there to hold you up when you need help, and they will be there to root for you when you're succeeding. You cannot be a narcissist your whole life, because eventually that success will be taken away from you, and you will be depending on people around you. And if you haven't felt that yet, then you might be the person who needs to see that movie, because, you know, we live in a society that poisons us with individualism, and we live in a society full of blatant narcissists. So, you know, like, if the messaging of this movie was anything else, it would have been a 6. But it isn't, so it's a 7.
I'm cool with that.
It's 2009, and we forgot about Cars because Pixar hasn't released anything in 3 years at that point. And then, in June 29th, they dropped some very, very delicious, unexpected banger. The star of the Michelin restaurant.
Yeah! This is gonna be another one that I'm just gonna be a bitch about, unfortunately. But I feel like this is the least founded of my bitch moments.
I'm pretty sure it's probably gonna be the least founded of your bitch moments, but I want to hear it anyway.
This Ratatouille is a movie that everyone fucking loves. But I remember I haven't really watched it since I was like 17, and I rewatched a bunch of, as you know, I did like a viewing marathon. This was one I did not rewatch for this video. Even though I probably should have, I didn't. So I think I'm going to abstain from rating this, because from memory, it's like a 7 out of 10. But it's everyone's favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, man. The consensus is this is like a little story about a chef that could, and it touched so many people's hearts. Technologically speaking, it's also outstanding. It's like Studio Ghibli type content as far as the general consensus seems to go. Like, is it a perfect movie? Probably not. Like, you can totally find things to dislike about it if you really try hard. But I don't think I have any problems with it at all. In my eyes, it's like just as good as Incredibles, just as good as Monsters, Inc., just as good as Finding Nemo.
We can give Ratatouille a 10. Just because I don't feel comfortable maligning it with... It's been so long since I've seen it. This was one of the first movies I really remember seeing in the theater, so I definitely have like positive memories attached with it, and you know, it just watching it as a teenager, it didn't click with me in the same way a lot of these that I really love did click with me. So I think I'm gonna abstain.
You made me realize that the first time I've seen it, I actually watched it in English without speaking any English, and
that's
crazy.
Felt
the same way. Yeah, like I did not understand jack shit because it didn't make sense. However, like seeing the animation and seeing like the sequences and the music spoke in every language. And
that's another.
Like,
who did the scores? Is this another Giacchino?
I think so, but it's good to
Michael
double check.
Giacchino did the score for WALL-E. Yep.
Yeah, for Ratatouille.
Oh yes, for Ratatouille. He did not do the score for WALL-E.
Yeah, not there yet. So basically, Ratatouille is like. So I do not think, unlike some very popular opinions on YouTube, I do not think Ratatouille is like the magnum opus of Pixar, but it is one of the most solid pieces that like after Cars were like, okay, is Pixar out of juice? Did they have that incredible, unforgettable wave of beautiful cinema, essentially, that they created? Or do they still have it in them? And when Ratatouille came out, that's when everybody's like, yeah, okay, we still got them. Like, this was just a tiny hiccup. Cars was just a bump on the road that is relatively not as good. And then Ratatouille came out, it's like, yeah, this is fantastic. Like, the fur animation that we mentioned before, the technology that was developed for all of that detail to like keep transcending. The music is just fantastic. Flying the animators to like go do their art by like, you know, learning about the sewers under Paris and the rats, and going to 5-star restaurants every evening of like, you know, the trip when you take them out. Like they literally fed them the best meals there were, so that they can understand the textures of the food and how all of that comes together, and then apply all of those experiences in animation. Like, this is why Pixar is what it is because they get out of their way to do their art, because at the core of it is just like people's innate ability to make something so beautiful that it just like completely captivates you visually in, you know, as a form of animation. And that's what they did. And there's nothing in that movie that was like wrong. Also, like, I love the antagonists in this movie. It's just like greedy people that borderline have like some kind of reasonable motivation in a context of like capitalist world not wanting to lose the legacy. Like that the evil chef is just fucking great as a villain because he doesn't have the substance that Gusteau had, but he's trying to use like his friend's legacy to like keep building off of it in that sense, but he himself doesn't have anything to offer creatively, which makes the whole thing false, right? Like he's hiding behind a better person essentially, trying to get rich off of it. And it is really, really sad. It's a really interesting premise for a villain because it kind of puts him into more of this gray area. But like in Ratatouille, there's really like, if you look at the villains, humans are not really the villains, because like you look at Antoine Ego, he's just a critic, he's just like a member of that ecosystem. You look at the struggles that the main character goes through, just like being amongst humans, being seen by humans is already challenging. So you can almost say that all of humans are a little bit of antagonists in Ratatouille, which is fantastic because like, you know, I just feel like it's a really unique story told in a really unique way that is a product of a beautiful artistic process that is just so nice and so compelling.
Yeah.
And yeah, everything that Pixar could have done about this, they done right. And yeah, like unquestionably, it is one of the best movies that Pixar has made in the context of their legacy, as well as, you know, in the context of like everything else they made.
I really fuck with Aidan Ego and all of his shit.
Yeah.
And it's kind of ironic that I'm like,
He's
that
fantastic.
my instinct is to shit on this movie. I am having an ego moment. But I also, something, when we were prepping for this video, I was looking at a bunch of like the behind the scenes shit for all these Pixar movies and ways that they pushed 3D animation forward, and how the food in this, because food has a certain quality to it, that because the food is inherently more porous, the light is able to reflect through it easier, so it develops this kind of like luminous quality. So when they rendered the food in Ratatouille, they did it in such a way that light was able to come through the food to make it look more appetizing. I think that's really cool. I think
it's
I need
all
to
of the
abstain
groundbreaking
from-
technology. Cool.
I'm
Yeah, I
gonna
thought this
abstain
was
from
going to
this
be a pretty
conversation.
delicious consensus, but yeah, no worries. You take your time. You have respect for it, I can see.
I'm gonna abstain from this one just because there's a few movies on here that I have not seen since I was like younger, and that was one that I was like, I'm just not gonna fight you on it. So we'll give it a 10.
Sounds fantastic.
Because everyone loves it so much, it feels so sacred that I would feel bad if I shat on it. So you know what came out next?
Out there.
But I'm brilliant teen and dime cigars.
Yeah, right?
Best
I think
best
this thing
Pixar
slaps.
movie, perhaps the best animated movie of all time. I think it's my favorite animated movie of all time. WALL-E beats
definitely
everything in the Ghibli catalog, and WALL-E beats anything that fucking Don Hertzfeldt has made. Any of the Disney Renaissance movies, WALL-E fucking clears. I'm sorry, man. WALL-E is a masterpiece among masterpieces.
Bro, I was
I'm
convinced...
sorry.
No, listen. I was convinced that I will be defending it. But...
No.
Because I was going to say, in my eyes, WALL-E is Pixar's magnum opus.
The best one!
Yes, like people say that.
We're on the same
people
page.
say
Okay.
Ratatouille, Toy Story, and I'm like, no. They were able to take inanimate objects and then make them animated, make them feel like characters. And WALL-E is just like a complete and utter catharsis of that process, just like really culminating with the technology and all the ways in which they made it feel so alive. Like every fucking frame of that movie was a massive creative challenge for everyone who developed these characters.
Yes.
It's Toy Story on steroids. It's like Toy Story in space, technologically speaking.
Yeah.
And it is so rewarding and satisfying seeing that shit. Because like I am a really big fan of movies that don't use dialogue. And animation that doesn't use dialogue is like even better. And like Pixar has been excellent. They have like an absolutely fucking excellent track record making shorts where characters don't talk. They just kind of make sounds.
Don't talk at all.
And WALL-E I don't think they made a better feature film where a character that doesn't make sounds that are like speech, or most characters for that matter that are robots that don't make talking sounds can still interact in the ways that they do. It is just a pure art form of animation shining at its best. Like, they took this in the 90s with the Toy Story. They were like, this can go somewhere. This is an art form that the world deserves to have. And then they just show its full potential with WALL-E.
Just, to me, everything... you talk about the silent, how he's like almost like the Tramp. He's like he's like Charlie Chaplin, WALL-E.
Yeah.
And there's so much
he's literally
homage in the
that
film to classic Hollywood for that reason.
Yeah.
It is this crazy, the way they use the lack of dialogue to convey WALL-E as being so soulful and so alive, and he doesn't even have a mouth, but just the way they animate his eyes, those little fucking binoculars he's got strapped to his head. You can tell when he's smiling, you can tell when he's frowning, and it's the same thing with Eve. Everything is so perfectly communicated through the subtlety of their emotions. There's never a question about what WALL-E is feeling.
Or anyone else for that matter.
The way... No. And the fact that the robot cast in this movie is so... I feel like it's the best of both worlds, because you get those kind of silly, goofy characters that a lot of... Like, I was bitching about these guys in Bug's Life, where it's like you gotta have the fat caterpillar who's, got an evil, like, annoying shit.
Yep.
You get all these silly, goofy characters, like Mo, and like the hairdresser robot, and like in some cases Otto, and all the big fat people and the cockroach, and but you don't have to deal with these overbearing, annoying comedian voice actors who aren't conveying the emotion, need to explain to you everything that's going on. Everything is told to you through how they move, through, like you said, those little audio cues. The amount that is communicated in Mo's emotion, just of him going Mo. Mo. And just on inflection. It's like everyone's Groot. They have this very limited vocabulary, and they use it to the absolute logical extreme.
Yep.
And it's perfect.
It's fantastic.
And like I've never seen a movie communicate love and the feeling of being in love as effectively as these two sexless robots do. The defined dancing scene is one of my favorite scenes in any movie, and it never fails to make me cry. And even with all that, like you said, the messaging, it doesn't beat you over. It's not like Ferngully or Avatar, but it is very succinct about the warning that it gives us. And like every shot, those first 15 minutes tell you everything you need to know about what the movie is trying to tell us, what the movie's trying to warn us about, and what the movie needs us to know for later. And it does all of that while establishing WALL-E's life and his little fucking robot bachelor pad. And the way the movie contrasts, like, this sleek, unfeeling nature of the ship, it kind of reminds me of the rich people whose names I'm forgetting from Firefly. Their planets... they remind me a lot of how WALL-E, the Axiom feels, where it's incredibly sterile, and like when you compare that, you contrast that with Earth and how it's covered in dirt, and how WALL-E manages to find so much joy and enlightenment in these things that have been discarded, and it says so much about consumerism. And like the things that we deem to be garbage, and the way us deeming those things garbage is literally burying us. And it's like it shows us the logical extreme of this live fast, consume faster style of consumerism that ironically Disney goes through great efforts to push. And it just, I do not think there is a single way that this movie fails. Truly. And this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't think there's a better Pixar movie.
Dude, give it the love. I mean, fuck. And I agree with you. Like, all the other movies, for the powerful messaging that they have, the powerful stories they have to tell, like, just the backdrop in this movie is more complex, nuanced, and has more purpose than some feature films have as a whole, as like the A plot points, you know?
Bro, most.
Yeah, literally.
Most feature films.
And it's like, you don't just like, within the first 15 minutes, you teach everyone everything they need to know. You plant the messages in the minds of the children, like, this is how this can happen. We are on the way to getting there. And that was 2008. And it's fantastic because we need that message as early as we can in our lives, in everyone's lives. Because holy fuck, can we get there? Because we're exceptionally good. Like, you know, humanity is a big, like, human species is like, it's a big bipedal extinction event. We destroy things so fast. And we create things really well too, but we destroy them irreparably. And when we create, like, the things that we do create, we create them to clean up the mess. You know, and like, it's just like every single thing, even how WALL-E is created, is just like a byproduct of humanity being a messy fucking thing and leaving a mess everywhere. Like, to a point where robots had to take over completely, where humans had to be, you know, humans that don't do that have to be reduced to like a collection of like essentially fat beans that sit in hover chairs and just like consume
their
entertainment
livestock
constantly. Yeah, they're essentially like a livestock, just like a part of this perfectly automated machine where their happiness levels as consumers are sustained at 100% at all times, which basically, you know, reduces their lives to ones of livestock, essentially. And it's really stupid, and it's really scary. And you look at it, and the more time passes, the more relevant these messages become. And what's scary to me is that it's the message of, like, what humanity has become, right? What this mass consumerism can lead to, and this, like, you know, just mass indulgence in just the things you want to do, the things you like to do. I'm saying this in very broad strokes, obviously. But, like, also the message at the beginning of the movie about the fucking apocalypse and, like, trash everywhere and a dead planet and armies of robots trying to fix things. Like, that message has not aged a second. In fact, it became, I think, orders of magnitude more relevant in 2025, you know, than it is.
It gets... Yeah.
And...
it ages like wine. And the animation, too... does not feel even remotely dated.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Like, it still looks perfect.
Yep.
And something Andrew Stanton pushed for this movie was he wanted the in-world camera. They specifically animated the camera to feel like there's an actual movie camera in the scene with the characters. Mm-hmm. So there's parts where you get like a push in, you'll get like the brief out of focus, like it's an actual camera. Yeah,
I can feel that, especially in like action sequences. It's fantastic. They did the same thing in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. They had a camera operator run like alongside Flint Lockwood to do like long following shots. And WALL-E, like every single thing they developed for that just made it feel that much better. And I honestly think that like that real camera presence is a huge bonus for the movie's visual language, because when you're trying to create inanimate characters, like, you know, inanimate like robots feel animate, using those lens effects and making it feel like the camera's in the room with them just further sells that, you know, sense of presence, like they're real, like they're textured.
And humanity.
Like, robots in here are more human than humans, and I feel like that also just reinforces the power of these characters so much. The power of the Wall-E's characters and Eve's character, and just like the way in which they both circumnavigate their purpose. Like, dude, I can just spend a whole fucking hour talking about like the humanity of robots in WALL-E. It will be so beautiful because every character has an arc. Fuck.
I think I want to, at some point, make, like, a full video about this movie's anti-consumerist and, like, anti-capitalist themes. There are elements to WALL-E that I would... oh, fuck. I'm gonna go there. It's that time of the night. I think there's elements of WALL-E that are explicitly Marxist. And it's fucking... It is ahead of its
It's time, fantastic.
Man. Absolute masterpiece. I'm putting this at the top of our ranking.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, WALL-E is like 11 out of 10 in my opinion, just because like the shit gets better and better every time I watch it. I've been working on...
There is no movie like WALL-E.
Yeah. And you know, since this is the peak for both of us, I want to like go on a little personal tangent because it's important to me. I've been reading so much Asimov for the last like 3 to 4 years of my life. Like when the pandemic started, I was like, I gotta get that foundation, into my system. And I read so many of his books, and then I read Caves of Steel, which I Robot was loosely based on. Like just learning all of that original sci-fi literature about like robots and how the society perceives them, and like why they're there for, and how they function in the context of like human development and all this shit. Like with all of that in my head, like for a while I've been working on a book about a robot, and it's like also taking us through like many different centuries and shit. And it's been like a very, very grueling work in progress, because I'm not like a literary writer. I make movies for a living, so it's a little different. But basically, like when I watch WALL-E, I just resonate with everything he does so fucking much. It connects with like so many of my characters that I personally like to come up with creatively. It resonates with my own life of just like, he's able to just dig out trash and make a castle out of it that makes him happy, and that's what any artist would do. Like WALL-E is just like a natural evolution of someone who was born with a specific purpose, with like, hands and a hydraulic press to compound trash inside him, but he finds a different purpose. He becomes an artist because he collects what's abundant around him and gives it better purpose that makes him happy. And like, and that's just the beginning of the movie. Like the first 15 minutes, the shit hasn't even landed yet, and that's already,
he's like a curator.
Exactly. It just has so much more to offer. This movie has so much more substance, this vast majority of all the movies ever made. Because like this messaging is just something that, like, I firmly believe that if more children and adults of this world would just like understand and resonate with things that WALL-E has to offer as far as like messaging goes, the world would have been such a better place. The world would have been like a more loving, more caring place. And the fact that there's still people out there who look at animation genre as a whole without like realizing how much potential this has, without realizing how much power these stories can have, because stories like WALL-E are not so ubiquitous. They're really fucking hard to make. They cost a lot of money. They cost so much love and power and dedication of the artists that made them. And like, we have not mentioned this yet, but like most of the movies that we talked about took years to make, more than your typical live action, feature film would take. So WALL-E has 58 production babies, and I think this is the most that any Pixar film ever had.
Absolutely fucking madness.
Yeah, like and a lot of them are twins apparently, and people that worked on for years to make WALL-E, to bring it into reality. They would fall in love, they would get married, they would have children, and they would be production babies. And it's because, something this beautiful takes many, many years to complete. And oh my god, did they deliver.
I love WALL-E.
Yeah, just so many reasons.
And it's also worth mentioning that this is the only Disney movie to ever receive the Criterion treatment.
Right.
WALL-E is the only Disney or Pixar movie to be released in the Criterion Collection.
Okay, yeah.
That should tell you everything that you need to know.
Oh yeah, that's big.
Is that? Yeah, like, dude, fucking WALL-E. Literally, I don't even know if people are watching this. If people are watching our video and they have not seen WALL-E for whatever reason, they need to shut off our fucking video.
Shut this off. You're wasting your time. Like, go watch WALL-E.
Guys, your life will be better. Like, I genuinely, cannot overstate how much this movie means to me. And it seems like to Igor, too.
Go watch WALL-E.
Yeah, this is...
Go watch WALL-E.
This is as good as it gets. I think there are 3 movies on this entire list that I just, without hesitation, give a 10. And WALL-E is absolutely, I think you're right. I would give this, a 15.
Fuck
Igor.
yeah.
This is easy... This is in my, top 10 movies, literally, of all time.
Yeah.
I rate this with, Train Spotting and, Ingmar Bergman's Seventh Seal.
Oh my
this is,
God.
This is maybe I think the best movie that... This is the best movie of 2008, and that's the year The Dark Knight came out.
Yeah, it's better than Dark Knight.
I'm going to say it.
It's better than Dark Knight.
I'm gonna say it. I think WALL-E's better than The Dark Knight.
I think so too. Dude, we just reviewed that shit.
I know that's a crazy thing to say.
Yeah, we just
I
reviewed
know that's a crazy thing to
Knight.
say, because, like, listen, Dark Knight's a masterpiece, but fucking WALL-E is something more than that.
Yeah, man.
It's WALL-E.
Yeah.
It's everything about this movie is simultaneously generational and timeless. Everything that WALL-E needs to do to be an amazing movie, it does it 3 times over.
Yeah.
Fucking WALL-E.
No, absolutely. And
Fucking WALL-E.
yeah, and you know, it deserves it. But here's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
we literally released it last week. Like, as of the day of recording this, literally last week, we released 30 minutes of me talking about how much I fucking love Dark Knight. Joe and I were fucking simping over it the whole time. There's 30 minutes of me simping all over it on YouTube. You can go watch it. And I have to say that, like, WALL-E is better. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the best movie.
It's WALL-E, bro. It's
It's
WALL-E.
fucking WALL-E.
It's WALL-E.
Yeah. May 29, 2019, a flick named Up comes out, and I have only one thing I have to say about that movie. If there was a movie that I would want to show to all film students, or like anyone who's like learning screenwriting, or just like wants to understand storytelling better, I would just show them first opening sequence of Up, tell them that there was no rest of the movie,
Yeah.
and just leave it at
Yes!
that.
Okay, thank you. I'm so glad that we're on the same page. Holy shit. Because I was about to say, like, I'm gonna hit you with a hot take. It's the Up's first, like,
Yeah,
30 minutes are a 10.
yeah.
And then after that, it just becomes incoherent.
A collection of
And, like,
childish
there are elements
pranks
of
and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are elements of the end of Up that I really love. I love the idea of having him literally carrying his grief with him in the form of him and his wife's house. I think that's really an amazing image. But as far as them, like, him confronting adventure and meeting his hero and his hero sucking, I just don't find it all that compelling. I don't love the talking dogs. It's a lot of annoying shit.
Yep.
Incredible opening though.
Oh yeah.
I give this flick a solid 7.
Yep.
Closer to a 9.
Yep.
Closer to an 8, sorry.
Yeah, I put an 8.
So we're in... Great. So like a 7.5 then?
Yep. No, it's an 8.
Yeah, I want my men to be alive. This is just the most important podcast we've ever made, but you know, it's important that you stay alive.
I know. There will be... It is the most important podcast we've made so far.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that everything that I said, like, I stand by it, and it's like a really good way to catalog exactly how we feel about some of the greatest animation ever made. So it's great.
Which,
I think
speaking of which,
Yeah.
to cap on this episode, you want to talk about greatest animation ever made. Tell me about Toy Story 3.
In Toy Story 3, like, how does it stack up against the second one? It just does.
It's better.
You know, it's
better.
It's even better. You know, we were just simping all over the second one. This is even better. And just the same way it expands on the universe, but it also expands on its original messaging, and I think that's what makes it better. While the second one is an excellent sequel, a perfect sequel that expands onto the world, this one takes the original messaging of the first movie, which is, you know, kids, the children imagination is precious, childhood is precious, it is full of these high stakes situations that are just so important in making a good person. It wraps it all up saying that eventually it ends. For all the toys that cannot be friends with their kids anymore, eventually everyone grows up. Eventually the time moves on and nothing is permanent. And if there was an important message that this whole trilogy had to give that it did not give yet, it will probably be that. It just serving us that message that nothing is permanent. Your love and your attachment to your toys, these epic stories that we hold in our hearts from playing with our toys as kids, they're not permanent. And that's why they're so important, because while they're happening, we will retain them and they will live with us forever. And that shot when Andy drives off and they now have, a new child that they take care of, it just goes to show that, like, there's cycle to this. They will remain, like, another child will play with them. They will still bring joy and this core moments of happiness and value into another extremely important person's life that is not Andy. And it's fine, and it's beautiful, and if there was a way to end it without making anybody cry, this was it. It fucking hurts, and it made me cry anyway. It made everybody cry, but it made them cry in a way that was good, in a way that made everybody understand why that movie was so important. And yeah, like, I can tell you about, like, the plot and shit, but I just feel like, Toy Story 3 is just one of those things where it made everyone's hearts explode all over again. and it was beautiful. Plot-wise, though, I loved, again, the expansion, right? We get to see all of these feral kids in the daycare system.
Yeah.
Just, like, what that's like for the toys, which is completely understandable. I think several of my close friends and loved ones work in, like, the daycare system. They, take care of children. And when they watch it, they just feel like they feel like those toys. They feel like they're also being put to the test every single day, and they feel beat by it. And it's just beautiful, like, beautiful to, like, show that part of that world of Toy Story. And Lotso. Lotso is the character, right? The toy that
incredible villain.
Yeah, it's a toy that was treated poorly, and he has this vengeance, like this desire for power and for control over other toys. It's an absolutely beautiful villain that is also, like, right, an expansion of the pre-existing world and populating it with new exciting characters that just feel so good. And I love his ending too, that he got attached to the front of the garbage truck. Like,
yeah,
it's just so fucking good, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's just wonderful. Like you said, it takes everything about the first two and it expands it further and answers, like, the remaining questions about the world, while also telling perhaps the most compelling story. And I think Lotso is a really good foil for Woody. Woody is he's kind of the Oculus that we experience this entire series through. So Lotso, being this kind of domineering toy who rules everything with an iron fist, for the sake of these kids, and ultimately ends up abusing and misusing all these other toys that work under him. Like, it is a really good way to, like, show how far Woody has come by putting him up against essentially the worst version of himself. And the whole thing is really, it's about letting go. Like you said, it's about aging gracefully and humility and recognizing that, like, life has seasons, and that you're not going to be with the same people forever, but cherishing your time with them. And you're not going to be young forever, but cherishing the time that you are young. And that's something that unanimously can be related to, and it ties the themes of the other two movies together with a perfect bow. And I always like to point this out. Godfather is considered, like, the benchmark of film bro movies. It is considered widely. I'm filming this in my grandfather's apartment, and I'm looking right now at his. He has the American Film Institute, the AFI 100 top movies of all time. And hold on, actually, I'll just fetch it for you. They consider The Godfather to be the number 3 movie of all time. I'm holding it in my hand.
Oh. What are the first
The Godfather, Casablanca is number 2, and Citizen Kane is number 1.
Of course it is. Okay.
They consider The Godfather to be the number 3 movie of all time. And it's part of, obviously, a trilogy. And I would consider the first Godfather to be near perfect. I would consider Godfather Part 2 to be perfect. Godfather Part 3 fails to stick the landing. Coppola famously fucking flubs it. Sofia Coppola gives a nearly unwatchable performance. It's gaudy. we'll see how Megalopolis turns out, but they can't do it. You know what?
Yeah.
What series managed to pull off the trilogy, the finale? Fucking Toy Story, man. Fucking
Yep.
Toy Story. And
Toy Story.
It's the same thing as it's just that we were just shitting on the Dark Knight and shitting on how Wall-E is better than the Dark Knight. It's the same thing here, where I genuinely don't really like Dark Knight Rises very much.
I mean, rightfully so.
And how it's the same idea, where it's like you get these two amazing movies in Batman Begins and Dark Knight, and then you fail to stick the landing. What stuck the landing?
Yeah.
Toy Story 3.
A whole myriad of factors. But yeah, you're so right. You're so fucking right. Toy Story 3 did it. And I can't think of anything that comes together better. Yeah. And I think it's because, you know, like the Dark Knight, Batman Begins and the Dark Knight are wonderful standalone movies. Like, you can watch them in a vacuum and have a great time. And I think the thing about Pixar is that when they are done with the first Toy Story movie, they don't worry about it anymore. They take a breather, they develop all sorts of other creative shit, and then they start to work on another one. Right,
Yeah.
Toy Story 2, right, it was in development pretty soon, but it also works as a standalone movie. It has that creative agency, you know, it has the integrity. Because you can watch them in a vacuum and still enjoy them. I definitely don't feel that way when I watch Dark Knight Rises, because, well, there's flashbacks, there is direct leaning into it, but also the movie just drags unless you don't know all the little things from the previous two movies. And even if you do, it kind of drags still. Watch our reaction, we made it really clear there when and where. However, Toy Story 3, right, like, you have time to rest from your first movie to your second, and then you take another break, make all sorts of other really awesome shit, and then work on Toy Story 3. There was backlash too. They were like, we don't want Toy Story 3 because Toy Story 2 was the best sequel and we don't want it to make it worse. The same exact worry people got before the second one came out. It's that sequel fear that people get because they love the original material so much, they don't want to mess it up. And then when it came out, we're just like, holy crap, this is perfect. The funny thing is that I actually felt that way when Toy Story 4 came out too. I was like, we don't need it. And even more people were like, we don't need it. And then it came out, and Sporky was there. And like, it just felt so good and relevant for its time as well. And I might even feel this way when Toy Story 5 comes out, but like, I think that the sentiment that we need them less and less is becoming more and more relevant and prominent with every new iteration of Toy Story. And, you know, obviously Pixar is not like Blue Sky Studios that just kept making Ice Age until it died, right? Pixar does not have to turn its Toy Story into Ice Age, you know?
I just think that you could reasonably... It's the Skywalker syndrome, where I feel so strongly about this trilogy of movies, the three Toy Story films. And I agree that there are elements of Toy Story 4 that are redeeming, that I really enjoy. You could just tell a story about a different cast of toys in the same universe and not have to do what Toy Story 4, I fear, did in undoing a lot of the character development and a lot of the learning that happened in 1 through 3. I think that if they had rebooted Toy Story with a completely different cast, maybe there's an occasional cameo from Woody, I think that would be great. But they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Because the marketable characters are marketable. And it makes it sloppy, and it makes it redundant. And it's the same thing that they keep doing. It makes it Marvel. And it's the same shit they keep doing to the fucking poor Star Wars actors. And it's what they're doing now. They're bringing back Robert Downey Jr. And they're teasing. They're thinking about bringing back the original Avengers. And it's like, guys, tell a different fucking story. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. So Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. And it can be great. Josh Whedon, bro. But the thing is, like, with all of this in mind, right? With this journey of Pixar that we just listed, right? With all the movies coming out sequentially, it seems like when Andy drove off at the end of Toy Story 3, it's like, it's not just the end of the trilogy. It was almost, in retrospect, looking at it from 2024, 2025, in retrospect, it was an end of an era, because Pixar had an absolutely unimaginably beautiful run with movies that are 10s out of 10s, 11 out of 10s. Aiden's most favorite movie of all time, arguably, is in this list.
Yeah.
When people talk about Pixar, they think of Studio Ghibli in terms of just like quality. There's very few, exactly. There's very few studios and creators out there, and artists out there who can just this consistently make stuff that is just so beautiful. The worst of this list is still better movies than some studios have made over the course of their whole existence. And that just goes to show that this is one of the most important animation studios that has ever existed. And this legacy that it had from 1995 to 2010, those 15 years, was just peak Pixar. And nothing can take that away. No matter how much profits the movies that they're going to make in the future, no matter what kind of market like infrastructure changes are going to happen, no matter how like the climate of the film industry and the priorities are going to shift, no matter what happens to Pixar, these 15 years were formative, not just for them and for like the animation genre as a whole. They were formative for so many children that grew up just watching one Pixar masterpiece after another, and it has deeply enshrined it into our collective memory. We will carry this to our graves, and that's what makes it so iconic. This is why we're talking about this. And honestly, what you see at the beginning of the video, the death of Pixar, is kind of clickbaity, but we're talking about this because of the recent news. Shortly after Inside Out 2 came out, the executives came out and they said something really horrible, and something that, in my opinion, and also Aiden's, has sealed the fate of what this used to be, of the studio that it was in 2010, and made it clear that we're not going back there. So please stay tuned for part 2 that's going to come out next week, where we're going to talk about 2011 and all the years onwards, the time when Pixar got sick for the first time and created some abominations.
It's not always peaches and cream. Let's just put it that way.
Unfortunately.
Shit starts getting tough.
Yeah.
Can I tease next week?
Sure.
We're gonna start with Cars 2 because that's what's next, and that was kind of like the initial death rattle of Pixar starting to like lose their touch.
Oh yeah.
And I have a crazy story about Cars 2.
Okay.
That I want to open next episode with.
Sounds.
Are we game for that?
I'm fucking game for that.
It's gonna be nuts. So if you're watching this right now, subscribe. And if the video's already up, go watch it right now, and you're gonna hear my crazy story about Cars 2.
Fuck yeah.
All true. All true. Those of you who didn't know, Igor's name is Igor Sabotin.
Yeah, you nailed it, actually, yeah.
Igor Sabotin, which translates in English to Igor Saturday. So I'm filing the paperwork right now to change my name to Aidan Friday, so I can be the better day. I've got a kitty with me who wants to say goodbye to the people at home.
You got a kitten, yeah, kitten.
You've got a kitty on your end as well?
Not at the moment, but we featured him on a channel a couple of times. His name is Kuzma Fyodorovich.
What is his name?
Well, that's his official name. His real name is Kuzya. Kuzya.
What is Kuzma Fyodorovich?
Kuzma Fyodorovich is like his middle name.
What does that translate to?
Well, Kuzma is actually like a really old-fashioned Russian name, and Kuzya is specifically a name of a guardian spirit of the home, and we call these spirits homies, domovые. I guess the best translation is homies, and they're home spirits that watch over you. Like, people need to be nice to each other. They don't lie to each other. Keep the house nice and tidy. And if like people are dicks to each other, the homies have a power to make you miserable. They can like break your plates. They can set the house on fire. It really depends on like the severity of what people do, and whether or not they follow tradition and whether they're good. So we named
That's awesome.
we named our
I
pets
need a
Kuze
homie.
and Nafanya after the homie spirits.